Let's be honest, most of us, at some point, secretly wish someone would come along and save us. That maybe someone wiser, stronger, kinder would see our pain, recognize our potential, and offer us the perfect escape. That someone would fix what's broken, rescue us from the weight of our own story. But life doesn't unfold like a fairy tale. There is no rescue team coming. And strangely, that's not a tragedy, it's a revelation, because the person you've been waiting for is already here. It's you. There's a quiet, powerful shift that happens when you stop outsourcing your life to other people or to fate. When you stop saying, I wish someone would help me, and start asking, what can Nablish I do today to change this? That is the birth of radical ownership, not the kind that shames you, but the kind that awakens you. The kind that says, if I'm holding the pen, then I get to rewrite the script. Didas taking ownership of your life isn't about pretending you were never hurt or denying the injustice you faced. It's about choosing not to let that pain define the rest of your story. Psychology tells us that people who develop what's called an internal locus of control, those who believe their actions influence their outcomes, are not only more successful, but more emotionally stable. Because when you stop waiting to be rescued, you start building your own way out. And that process, while difficult, is where you reclaim your dignity. Muniba Mazari could have easily waited. She could have waited for someone to heal her, fix her, rescue her from her grief. But instead, she turned the ruins of her life into a platform. And that wasn't by chance, it was a choice. A decision to show up for herself in ways no one else could. And in that decision, she saved herself. But the path to self-rescue is uncomfortable because it demands brutal honesty. It forces you to look at your life and ask questions you might have been avoiding. And what am I tolerating that's keeping me stuck? What lies am I telling myself to feel safe? What parts of me have I abandoned while waiting for someone else to carry me? That kind of reflection isn't easy, but it's necessary. Because as long as you keep waiting for external permission to change, you give your power away. And the cost of that isn't just missed opportunities, it's a quiet, constant erosion of self-trust. Here's the truth: the world owes you nothing, not healing, not understanding, not validation. It may sound harsh, but it's actually freeing. Because once you stop expecting the world to give you what you haven't given yourself, you begin to grow. Not because it's fair, but because it's yours, your pain, your path, your power. There's something deeply philosophical about this idea. Existential thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre talked about the concept of radical freedom, the belief that human beings are not only free, but condemned to be free. That in every moment we are responsible for what we choose to become. It's a terrifying responsibility, but it's also the gateway to liberation. You are not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by what you decide to do next. And no matter how far off track you feel, no matter how buried you are under fear or regret or shame, it is never too late to return to yourself. Saving yourself doesn't mean doing it all alone. It means being the one who decides to begin. It means asking for help not because you're helpless, but because you've made the decision to grow. It means forgiving yourself, setting boundaries, rebuilding your identity, not for others, but for you. Because you deserve a life that reflects the truth of who you are, not the story of what you've survived. And yes, it takes courage, but courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. Courage means you act anyway. You speak anyway. You rise anyway. No one is coming to save you. But that's okay. Because the most powerful rescue is the moment you realize you no longer need to be saved. You just need to remember your strength. So ask yourself, not later, not tomorrow, but now, Brianne, What part of my life am I waiting to be rescued from? And what would happen if I stopped waiting and chose to rise instead? We often expect life to get better when someone else changes, when the situation shifts, when a door opens, when the pain ends. But that kind of thinking silently teaches us something very dangerous, that our healing is conditional, that our growth depends on circumstances, not on choice. The truth is harder, but it's also more powerful. No one is coming to make sense of your past. No one is coming to validate your pain in exactly the way you need. No one is coming to fight your battles for you, or to give you closure, or to pull you out of your darkest night. That work is yours, and that reality, while sobering, is also where your true power lives. There is a psychological shift that happens when we stop waiting and start owning. It's the shift from the victim mindset to the empowered mindset. Now, this doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. It means realizing that while we can't always control what broke us, we are always responsible for how we choose to heal. That ownership is where transformation begins. You don't have to wait for an apology to let go of bitterness. You don't need the world to become fair before you commit to your purpose. You don't have to be fully healed before you take your next step. Growth is messy, it's not linear, but it always starts with a decision, a quiet, powerful decision that says, "This is my life, and I will no longer abandon myself." And that's really what this is about, self-abandonment. Every time we wait for someone else to fix it, we leave ourselves behind. We hand our potential, our happiness, our agency over to people and systems that were never meant to carry them. And then we wonder why we feel stuck, why nothing changes, why it always feels like we're circling the same pain. The reason is simple: you cannot be saved by anything you're not willing to confront. You have to stop running from your reflection. You have to face the parts of yourself that are uncomfortable to look at. The anger, the grief, the insecurity, the fear. Not with shame, but with compassion. Not to judge, but to understand. Because here's the deeper truth: the pain you don't process becomes the pattern you repeat until you choose differently. And choosing differently, that doesn't happen once. It's not a single moment of clarity. It's 1,000 quiet decisions. To speak when you'd rather stay silent, to forgive when resentment feels safer, to show up for yourself when no one else does, to stop proving your worth and start remembering it. Philosophically, this mirrors what existential thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir believed: that freedom is not given, it is chosen. That we are condemned to be free because with that freedom comes the burden of responsibility. But in that burden lies our becoming, in that ownership lies our healing. It's tempting to believe that someone else will one day walk in and understand us so deeply that everything broken will be made whole, that the pain will make sense, that someone will finally get it. But what if that person is you? What if the one who sees your scars, knows the stories behind them, and still chooses to stand tall is already here? You are not powerless. You are not broken beyond repair. You are not waiting for life to happen to you. You're happening to life. And every time you choose to stop waiting and start moving, even if it's just one step, you reclaim that power. The journey isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were before the world convinced you that you were not enough. And the only person who can do that is you. So stop waiting. Stop waiting for closure, for certainty, for the right time. Life rarely sends clear signals. It moves in whispers. And it favors those who are willing to listen and act without a guarantee. Because in the end, no one is coming to save you. We talk a lot about We wait for it like a sunrise, hoping that someday we'll feel inspired enough to move, to start, to become. But the truth is, motivation is a visitor. It comes and goes. It cannot be trusted to build anything lasting. It is the spark, not the fire. And if you're building a life, if you're truly committed to saving yourself, you don't just need moments of motivation. You need the quiet strength of discipline. Discipline is not glamorous. It doesn't shout. It doesn't post on social media. It doesn't wait for applause. It happens in silence, in repetition, in the early mornings when no one is watching, in the late nights when you're exhausted but still show up. Discipline is what carries you when motivation disappears, and it will. This is where many people give up, not because they're not capable, but because they've been conditioned to believe that they need to feel something in order to do something, that they need to be inspired before they act. But real growth doesn't wait for ideal emotional conditions. It happens when you act in alignment with your values, regardless of how you feel in the moment. Psychologically, this is what separates high performers and those who stay stuck. Emotion-driven behavior tends to lead to inconsistency, but values-driven behavior, rooted in discipline, creates momentum. It builds emotional resilience, self-respect, and long-term identity change. You don't become confident by feeling good. You become confident by keeping the promises you make to yourself again and again until they become part of who you are. Discipline is self-respect in motion. The world will not always meet you with kindness. People will disappoint you. Life will hurt you. Your own mind will try to pull you back into patterns of comfort and avoidance. And in those moments, it won't be your motivation that saves you. It will be the inner structure you've built, the habits, the rituals, the discipline that keeps you grounded when the storm hits. And this isn't about punishment. It's not about forcing yourself into burnout or hustle. It's about recognizing that consistency is love, that choosing what is good for your future self over what feels easy now is an act of integrity. It's spiritual, because every time you choose discipline over distraction, you are honoring your purpose over your comfort. That is the deepest form of self-care there is. If you look at people who have risen from difficult places, you'll notice something. They didn't just wait for good luck or ideal circumstances. They created structure, they built rhythm. They said no when it would have been easier to say yes. And they kept showing up even when it felt like nothing was changing, because deep down, they understood that transformation is not an event. It's a process, and that process is built on discipline. The philosopher Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly." And he was right. Whether it's healing, success, peace, or purpose, all of it requires consistency. Not perfection, but consistency. And consistency is the child of discipline. Muniba Mazari didn't become a global inspiration overnight. She became who she is through repetition, through choosing purpose over pain again and again, through building a life not out of what she lost, but out of what she still had: a voice, a will, and a heart willing to serve. That doesn't come from fleeting motivation. It comes from anchored discipline. And the beauty is, this kind of strength is not reserved for the chosen few. It's available to anyone willing to commit. You don't have to feel ready, you just have to begin. You just have to show up for yourself, especially on the days when it's hard. Because that's where your power is, not in how inspired you feel, but in how you move anyway. Not in how easy it is, but in how you keep showing up, especially when it's not. So ask yourself this: what would change if I stopped waiting to feel ready and just decided to be consistent? Because in the end, it's not motivation that shapes your life. Died by it. It's the discipline to rise, even when no one is watching. There comes a point in every journey where the hardest question is not how do I move forward, but am I willing to let go of who I used to be? Because that's what real growth demands, not just action, not just discipline, but release. The courage to shed identities, stories, and roles that once kept us safe, but now keep us small. Letting go isn't passive. It's not the absence of care, it's the presence of clarity. And clarity asks us to choose freedom over familiarity. We hold on to so much old pain, broken narratives, outdated dreams, even relationships that echo with the sound of our own abandonment. Why? Because they're known, and the human mind craves the known. The brain, from a psychological standpoint, is a prediction machine. It doesn't prioritize what's healthy, it prioritizes what's familiar. And that's where most of us get stuck, circling the same emotional patterns not because they serve us, but because they're predictable. But no transformation is possible without the death of something. Maybe it's the need for validation. Maybe it's the identity built around being a victim. Maybe it's the comfort of blaming the world. Letting go of these things can feel like losing yourself, but the truth is, you're not losing yourself. You're finding the self that's been buried beneath survival strategies and fear. This is the deepest kind of liberation, not from people or places, but from the stories that no longer serve you. And those stories, they are sticky. They sound like I'm not good enough, this is just how I've always been. If I let go, I'll have nothing left. But listen closely, those aren't your truths. Those are your wounds talking. And wounds only heal when exposed to light. Letting go is not abandonment. It's alignment. It's the quiet decision to no longer carry what was never yours to hold. It's stepping away from roles you've outgrown so you can finally step into the life that's been waiting for you to show up fully. From a philosophical lens, think of it like this. Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher, said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man." We are in constant motion, but we suffer when we resist that motion. When we cling to identities, circumstances, and relationships that we've already outlived. And yes, it's terrifying. Because letting go often means walking into the unknown. It means grieving versions of yourself that once kept you alive. But it also means making room for new beginnings, for healed relationships, for a version of you that is no longer shaped by fear, but by intention. Muniba Mazari didn't just rise because of what she held on to. She rose because of what she chose to release, the resentment, the bitterness, the shame. She let go of who she thought she was supposed to be and made room for who she was meant to become. That kind of strength doesn't scream, it whispers, and its voice is steady. Let it go. You're ready. So ask yourself today, what are you still carrying that's too heavy for the road ahead? What beliefs, relationships, or expectations are rooted more in fear than in truth? You don't have to have all the answers, but you do need to begin the process of loosening your grip, because you cannot reach for what's next if your hands are full of what's past. This journey of saving yourself is not about adding more, it's about releasing, stripping away the noise until what's left is real, until what's left is you, raw, honest, powerful. And in that space, you don't just find freedom, you find peace. The kind of peace that isn't dependent on anyone else's permission. The kind that comes when you no longer need to be who you were in order to feel worthy of who you're becoming. So if you remember nothing else, remember this bridge sometimes. The bravest thing you can do is not to keep holding on. It's to finally let go and trust that what's meant for you has been waiting for your hands to be empty.